The following is the Legacy Africa Founders Journal. And today, we'll be reading entry 1, originally written 18th of January 2026, and today it's being recorded on the 29th of June 2026. At the time, I had no idea how the story would go, and this is what I wrote. Sunday, 18th January 2026, 1700. Molo Oam, Ndim. I decided to start writing to you today. This notebook, now a journal, was being saved for a special purpose. Low purpose nguwe. Yesterday, I cut off my hair, shaved it all off. And perhaps, for the first time in my life, it was fully my decision. I'd been growing it for 4 years, since 2022. It was free. It's testimony to the shedding of the parts of me that held me back until this point. I turned 22 this year. This year, I want to make you proud. I've done good leading to becoming you up until this far. I want this to be the year that you look back on and be able to say without fear of contradiction, I was all in. I made a decision to change permanently and stuck to it. This year, I won't tolerate backward steps due to friends and women. I leave room to accept that I will make new mistakes, but not the same old one. No more. My body, business, including building a personal brand, and education come first. Driver's license would be nice. It would be a good advantage. However, it's on the back burner as it's not a priority right now. Maybe as resources come, that will change. Certainly a missing link in my identity, more so how people perceive me. I could talk to you forever, but let's cut it there. On that note, here goes everything. Here goes everything. Now that's the original entry, word for word, as will be happening all throughout the series. I've also prepared a set of questions for myself to kind of prompt and bring out my reflections on certain things, make sure I hit on certain kinds of reflections, certain kind of points that will hopefully give value to you as the viewer and not just be a circle jerk of me talking to me about but to kind of provide value in the process. Recently, I put out a video that was talking about doing things that AI cannot mimic, cannot copy, as building these moats as a creator. And I think this is an example of that kind of series, that kind of concept, because AI can give you a story that it can make up. It can create a fantasy about growth, um, but it cannot reflect on growth in the true way that I'm reflecting on growth here, because this is really the original thoughts, stories, and events that have been happening throughout my life thus far on what is being known as, widely the generational run. Because it's been an insane 6 months, man. And to reflect on these thoughts 6 months later, I think it will be an interesting exercise, and hopefully you enjoy the journey. So let's get into it. So some of the stuff that strikes me now, immediately reflecting on it, I'll talk about the license issue first. So I still don't have a driver's license, because it just isn't a priority for me right now in the way that I said then. And what is true, which is super interesting for me, is in my identity, but more so how others perceive me. And so I hadn't at the time separated my own internal validation and external validation. I had physically done so in terms of I was no longer chasing the validation of friends, chasing the validation of women, and using those things to make up for sometimes the hole that I'd felt in myself, or the emptiness that I'd felt, or, feeling like I'm not doing anything, or I, not feeling alive in those moments. And actually yesterday I created a fantastic framework for that, for me personally, to make sure that I get the maximum fulfillment out of each day that I live. You know, the three things for me that have to happen in order for me to feel like I at least have done something. And if at least one of those things happens, I usually will feel better throughout the entire day. And for me, it's if I've built my body, made it a better place to live in, if I have worked on something that is bigger than myself, and so if I've built something, if I've contributed towards building something that is bigger than myself, I'll have a much better day. And if I've built someone, if I've contributed towards someone's day in some positive way, um, that usually elevates my base mood and makes me feel a lot better. So, you know, at the time, I really didn't have those frameworks set up. I had the beginnings of them in terms of I knew what I had to step away from in order to be who I'm ending up becoming. Um, hmm. Yeah, shedding the parts of me that no longer serve my higher self was very big. Turning 22 for me was a very interesting thing to acknowledge at that time, because up until that point, for me personally, you can live your life the way that you prefer. I'm living mine the way that I prefer. Okay, so to each their own. But for me, 19 to 21, being the cool guy who is doing, working really hard, working out, doing all that cool stuff, but also just living like a rock star, you know what I'm saying? People who know me know that I've lived like a rock star, and I'm not shy about that. That's really just a part of who I was at that time. But I'm no longer that person because for me, 19 to 21, it's cool. You're cool. I had the massive mohawk, muscles, this rock star. From 22 onwards, for me, is like, okay, no, this is getting serious now. Let's, you know what I'm saying? Let's make some serious decisions in terms of who we want to be. And a massive one, a massive, massive thing that I think about very, very often is don't practice who you don't want to be. Jordan B. Peterson said that. And I heeded it. And it's something that I think about very often and I reflect on differently as I grow, as situations change, as circumstances change. It has different meanings to me, but it's something that I think about very often, which is don't practice who you don't want to be. And so I made a decision on that 18th of January 2026 that I'm actually probably the 17th when I'd cut off my hair. Maybe I'd made this decision before then, and those were just the physical manifestations of a decision that I'd already made. But the decision was no more. It ends here. I literally say the words no more. I wrote the words down, no more. New mistakes? Yes, 100%. I know I'm not going to be perfect from here on out, but I refuse to feel that I'm losing my potential because I can't stop myself from drinking in certain social situations, knowing full well that I train Monday to Friday. Weekends, family, catching up on work or doing a little bit extra work so that on the Monday I have a bit of a head start. That's what weekends are for. But I know that if it's during the weekend, I'm supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to be spending time with family. I'm supposed to be working. Or I prefer to be doing those things with my time in my life. And so if I can't stick to that and I'd rather be, or I find myself doing other things that are just not in the plans, that's a loss in my book. And I've been taking that loss for years unnecessarily. And I just refuse to take that same loss. I'll take different losses. I just refuse to take that one in particular, you know? Um, so yeah, 22 for me is just a time where I drew a line in the sand between me and me, and decided let me actually make some very hard decisions and decide who I want to be and commit to that and make it really obvious and evident through my actions who I think I am, and the world would eventually validate those thoughts. Man, you know, let's just get back to the notes. See what else pops up. What made me smile? What made me cringe? I think in terms of what made me cringe, saying out loud that those were the things that were holding me back, man. Saying, yo, friends, women, because for me, um, I've yeah, I have smoked before, whether it's hookah, whatever the case is. But yeah, sure, I've done that before. I've never really considered that a vice of mine or something that I just couldn't help but go back to. Drinking, I could always just stop drinking like that. It's never really been something that pulled me. Like I've never been someone to be sitting by myself and get alcohol and just buy alcohol. You know what I'm saying? Like that's never been my thing. I've been a social drinker, um, and that's pretty much it. Um, Women, that's the one. That's been the one for me. That's a reoccurring theme, and shameful as it is to say, I draw parallel lines. I'm not really trying to compare the things one to one, but here's all I want to make as a comment in terms of addiction and sexuality in that sense. And I've spoken about this before, openly, and this is something that you're going to see as a theme all throughout. Is it something that I battle with, and I think of in the same vein that I would think of addiction is that women by and large. Now, this is no offense to anyone. I have many women in my life. My PA is a woman. I have people on my team that are women. I work with women all the time. I have women that inspire me. They're older. Obviously, I have a mom. I have a sister. I have these wonderful people that are great people in my life. I have three sisters. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is, I have great relationships with women, but people that I am not related to and are not, where there are no social reasons why it wouldn't be a good idea. I used to struggle with just detaching myself from that and not seeking that validation and not going for that type of thing, um, and instead receiving that validation from myself internally for as a reward for becoming who I want to be and doing the things I want to do. I've had to really consciously make that shift. And so saying that out loud, um, it is always a cringe factor. If you see how much context and whatever I just put around that now, just as an idea, it should give you an idea of the way that it affects me, the way that I think about it, and yeah, kind of making that shift has been something that is it's been almost a shameful experience for me because I've done more than just make the shift in from a dating perspective. I've been celibate for about 10 months now. It will be 10 months in July. No porn, no masturbation since January or since February probably. Yeah, I'll give myself great credit for Feb. Since February, I haven't indulged in any of that, and it's really been an ongoing process of becoming. And I've said this multiple times personally. I never write it down anywhere here, but to become the viceless man. If you check my tweets, you can search viceless man, and something that I've mentioned. I think to be without vice is to be truly free. You know, to not be controlled by any desire, to not be controlled by those things. Not to say that I'm perfect now, but I've now gotten to a point where I haven't crossed any lines that would make me feel that I've ultimately disrespected myself, and I've gone back to who I used to be, to what I used to know, and to the version of me that I no longer want to practice being. Because again, if you imagine yourself being a wholesome family man, a father, of this, of that, and at the same time, you consistently practice not being that, then being in those loving, caring situations and being ultra tempted by who you used to be should not come as a surprise to you because you've practiced being that for a long time. You've practiced lying to the person you love for a long time. You've practiced breaking commitments to yourself for a long time. You've practiced like whatever the case. And so I don't break commitments to myself. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. These mantras, these pillars have been things that have served me as a result of some of the decisions that I made at that time. So what season of life was I in? A transformational type of season. Pressures that existed were like something that I mentioned when I shifted when it comes to the age. That was something that really for me was an internal pressure that I had put on myself. Um, some of the things that weren't written down uh, include the things like the link to my identity. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for me, think about who I am for a second. You know, CEO entrepreneur, born in 2004. You know, decent looking bloke, muscular. You know, really strong. And so there are those certain things that you would just assume I have. You know what I'm saying? Like, and a driver's license is one of those things you would just assume. And I probably would if we lived in a different day and age, but because we live in this day and age, and I can get around by doing income generating things, and there's such a thing as e-hailing, and like you know what I'm saying? Like I'm just in that state where I'm like, it's not a necessity for me. If anything, the time that I'm using to focus on the mission itself, instead of focusing on doing that, is probably more lucrative for me, even in the long run. Than so it just became that like that kind of an equation. I didn't really write that down. Um, I didn't really write that down at that time. That's where I was at. But that's something that like I'm saying, I've battled with consistently, and you know, you fight every day. So that's an important thing. When I was mentioning the parallels between addiction and how I see some of the elements that persist throughout my life, is focus is like addiction, meaning you don't beat it once. You have to fight the fight every day. That's how I feel about some of these um, some of the things that occur between myself and different women all throughout my life, especially as I go on the journey and I advance, and my body develops, my business develops, my social medias develop. Like those things tend to be attractive to a certain kind of woman that is that may be particularly or not to any specific kind of woman, but it's things that people find attractive, in other human beings. It's things that human beings find attractive in other human beings, and so constantly being faced with varying levels of that temptation and being aware of that. And sometimes I lose in those moments. For me, if there is a situation where um, I've put something up and it's attracted a certain kind of attention, and someone's just consistent, just gone through and liked certain things, done this and done that. Me even looking at the person's profile for me is a small loss. It's a small conceding. It's a small breaking down of that armor, breaking down of that pattern, or a small creation of a pattern that would lead down to something negative. So just being super super conscious of things like that, man. It's something that I don't really write down very often, but it's something that I'm always consistently aware of. So some of the things that I was right about, and then some of the things that I was blind to in terms of opportunity, timings, people, myself. At this time, something I was right about, and definitely my priorities. Still journaling. Uh, I'm still on that same mission. Ultimately, I'm still not tolerating the things I said I wouldn't tolerate, and prioritizing the things that I would prioritize. And so, by and large, I'd say that I agree. I'd say that I agree with this guy in terms of the many, many things that he spoke about. Um, what would I say to him if I had a moment? Probably the same things I would love to hear now from from a future me. which would include I would tell him I need him. I would tell him I love him and that it's going to be all right. Because I think there was a lot of pressure and anxiety that came with a lot of stuff. The more I'm walking on the journey now, like I'm not that much further. It's only been 6 months. It's been pretty productive 6 months, and something that's becoming more and more clear to me as I go is, ooh, here's exactly what I tell you. No one opportunity, no one conversation, no one person is going to change everything for you. It's gonna be a dogfight, and you're gonna have to get up every single day and press towards and improve. And it's not about, you know, people tend to talk about, the idea guys don't get ahead, and I don't think that's true, and now less than ever. But the difference is, from the way people think about it and the way that it actually is one idea won't get you there. But having a big idea every day and pressing towards it every day, that is getting you there. That is doing something. And so keep having big ideas, keep fighting, keep sacrificing, and keep betting everything on yourself and on the mission. And I promise you, it'll come back tenfold. Tenfold, more than tenfold, man. It will be absolutely insane, you know. In the words of Dave, to end it off, I would say, you don't know what you're yet to achieve, and you're destined for some shit you would never believe. Mm, yeah, yeah, and I'd say thank you. And I definitely say thank you. So, if there's one thing to take away from this, one thing from this entry that has definitely stuck out to me, or that I'd want you to kind of take something from or take home, it would be the word decision. It would be the word decision. Now, I hadn't thought of this prior, and that there were a couple of lines that I thought I would hit, including obviously "Here Goes Everything," including "Man," "No More," all that stuff, super dramatic. Um, but I just noticed now that aside from "Molo Owam Ndim," which is "Hi Owam, it's me," I guess Xhosa, which is my native language, the first two words in the first entry is "I decided." I find that very powerful in retrospect. I find it very, very powerful that the first two words, the very first entry, about a founder's journey, about incredible transformation, and going from someone who literally had nothing but ideas to someone who, my business is like, it's real. Like, holy like like I have an IT team. I have a CTO. I have a PA. I have salespeople. I'm constantly recruiting from, like, holy, that guy, that guy had a dream, a vision, and a work ethic like no one could ever imagine. And the one thing that has changed me, aided me from being him to being me today, is those first two words. I decided. And so one thing you could take away, apply to your own personal journey, perhaps, is to decide, dekadira, to cut off. Commitment is the elimination of alternatives. Focus is the quantity and quality of the things you say no to. I've said no to higher education, continuing my education. I've said no to that. Is it because I can't? Well, I graduated top of my class. I was #1 in business. There were like opportunities are there. Opportunities are there. I said no. Many conversations I've had since then, partnerships, whatever's that I've said no to, because they would split my focus. And so, #1 thing, takeaway that will change your life forever, or at very least to change mine, is to decide. Decide who you want to be, decide who you're not going to be, and stick to that commitment. And I promise you, you will look back on some of the things that you've done as a result of making those decisions, and you'll be proud of yourself. And as a new tradition begins, we will end it in the new ending, which is, if you did in fact enjoy today's video, please hit the subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, please let me know down below. Let me know some highlights that you took away. And until next entry, keep building. I've been Sage, standing on business. Signing off.